How's it going, everybody? It's Pythlam, and we're back with a patch note video. 9.24 is on the docket today, so let's jump straight into it. 9.24, obviously seeing some different changes. We're going to be looking at a bunch of different changes for TFT as well. So hopefully we can expect some good changes. This is actually a pretty interesting bug fix. So basically, it's when you swap trinkets, the new cooldown is based on the time since you last used any trinkets. So any remaining ward totem ammo is converted to its value in cooldown for these purposes. So basically it was a bug fix that you could exploit by just keep swapping your trinket, and it would basically allow you to get more usages, which wasn't intended. So obviously quite a significant change there. But let's scroll down here. So we got some bunch of different skins which we'll look at as well. Aphelios, obviously for new champions coming out. They've also previewed their next champion in set as well. He'll be coming in a later patch. But basically I'll just give you kind of overview on Aphelios for those that don't know. Obviously he swaps between all these different weapons. He's a marksman. Very useful that he has the Calibrum rifle, which is his long-range one, kind of like rapid-fire cannon in the laning phase to start, which helps shore up the early levels. I think he's going to be a champion that needs to have comps catered around to him. I think he's quite powerful in his own right, but it's very easy to basically be taken out because he has no innate escapes. He does have abilities to basically manipulate his opponent by slowing them or rooting them or those sorts of things, or life stealing back up. But my issue with him is that he's very susceptible to just any dive champion. So tanks, bruisers, assassins, anything like that can get onto him quite easily. And his weapons are obviously situational. So he's going to have to hang on to the Gravitum Cannon, which is the one that allows you to slow and root people, if he's going to be able to escape these. But I was playing a few games of both Diana and Nocturne, who are very good dive champions at the moment, and I was able to basically just blow him away through Soraka ult and everything. So not really much he could do, but I think he can be a very good champion, but he just be set up in the right comp. I see him kind of more of as like a Caitlyn style champion, a bit more control, but has to have things set up in front of him in order to basically be played well. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I still think he's quite a good champion in his own right, but we'll see how good he actually is when it comes to competitive play, because that's really what determines it. Akali, they nerfed her Q, so it removed the hitbox from behind her, so the cone actually started from behind Akali. And they also reduced the damage by 8% to minions and monsters, so it makes her wave clear less oppressive. It also means you have to actually walk up a little bit forward to actually hit the ranged minions now for Akali, and actually align it a little bit better, so makes her harass with the minion wave as well, like while trying to hit the minion wave and you at the same time, a little bit more difficult for her, and it puts her in a more awkward position. I think Akali is a good champion in isolation, but has a lot of counters. If a game gets to 25 minutes and she's basically even, she's behind. Scaling champions are a lot better than her. So basically, if you send in Akali mid, you can play something like a Veigar. You can play something that's more controlling. You can even play Cho'Gath mid. You can play anything like that. It's just very difficult for her to actually get in. Now, obviously, if she steamrolls and she gets 10 kills in the first 15 minutes, the onus is on Akali to do that. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to see, because a lot of people were picking Akali in the East Renekton in these types of champions when game goes 25 minutes, which all games did at Worlds pretty much. These champions fall off drastically. So we'll have to see if this is the kind of the nail in the coffin for her or not. But yeah. Amumu, Q cooldown decreased early, so from 12 to 8 seconds, now from 10 to 8 seconds. So he gets his rank 3 at rank 1 cooldown wise, so that's quite good. Is it going to be the be all end all to make Amumu into competitive? No, it's not. You're not going to get 2 bandage tosses inside of a gank. Maybe in top lane, but that's kind of stretching it. It's kind of a similar situation to Rammus, where you're not going to get 2 taunts off in a gank. It may be something to where she can probably try to get it to work, but you know, Amumu's not that good of a champion. There has been situations where they could potentially have changed him to make him better. I just think he's just a very, very clunky champion. You kind of just want to walk around and auto attack people while you have your W on, which isn't a very thematic element for a champion. It's not really an identity. It's just kind of a boring, outdated playstyle, if I'm being honest. Braum saw a lot of different changes. So with obviously a lot of the more range supports being prevalent in the meta, especially the likes of the AP ones, where you can go double mage bot lane. So the likes of Xerath, Brand, Vel'Koz, Zyra, even Karma. Those types of champions, champions like Braum, champions like Alistar, melee champions have been quite lacking in that department. So let's see what they've changed to Braum. So his health growth, he gets a little bit more health regen, gets more health growth. So basically by the end of it, I think it works out to be, I want to say a health crystal, ruby crystal. Probably have to check Freaks or LS's patch notes for that. I'm pretty sure it's a ruby crystal or thereabouts in health, because it's 9 HP times 18. It's thereabouts, I would say. Or at least close to it. He's not going to get to level 18 in most games, so it's probably half a ruby crystal, but it's still more than nothing. Stand behind me, that's his W. This is where he dashes to his ally. So instead of 14 to 10 seconds, now 12 to 8 seconds. Okay, so it's a lower cooldown there, being more defensive. The cost is lower at all ranks, which is good. When you do level it, it goes from instead from 10 to 26 plus 10 to 16% bonus. It's 10 to 26 like before, but it's only 12% flat. So you get the rank 2.5, as it were, at rank 1, because I'm pretty sure you want to level your Q and your E first before this. However, the resistances to yourself are up drastically, so instead of 10 to 16% on yourself, it's 36%, which is the thing that actually matters, because you're going to be the one blocking the damage. So very good. So it's more about more of the aspect of stand behind me. He's going to be blocking the damage, so which is quite good. Glacial Fissure's damage has been increased. So this is ultimate, so 150 to 350, up by 50 at ranks 2 and 3. So that's quite good. So 0.25 seconds for those hitting the fissure for a knock up in the close vicinity. So now it's 1 to 1.5 seconds at all ranks based on distance from Braum for the first target hit in the fissure. Every other target hit or within close vicinity knock up for 0.25 seconds. Okay, that's really good. So basically, if you flash ult somebody, but you get them with the tip of it, it's going to be 1.5 seconds, and everyone else is going to be like a brief 0.25 knockup, which is very good. So basically, you get rewarded for the longer range ults as well. So that's quite nice. I like these changes to Braum. Is it going to make him better than the range supports? No, you can't. You may be able to pick him on red side 3 and red side 4 and 5 potentially. But this is not going to be something you're going to be first picking or first rotating. It's not going to be like the old days where it's Lucian Braum and Tom Kench is on the opposite side. Mind you, if Tom Kench gets some buffs, we'll see. Because I think that champion got over-nerfed quite heavily when it did require the nerfs it needed. So Diana got some changes. Obviously, I've been playing a lot of Diana. I like Diana a lot. I think she's a very good champion. So yeah, let's see the changes that she did. So obviously her base mana was increased, her mana growth was increased, and her attack damage was slightly increased as well. They changed her passive so that the AP ratio is now lower by 0.4, so basically the AP ratio is cut in half. It no longer gives a little bit of mana restored on the third strike. And the attack speed buff is actually the same early on until around level 14, I believe it is, and then the attack speed goes greater, because once it hits the 30+% mark, it goes above 90%, which was from 30% to 90%, whereas now it's 10% to 40%, but it gets tripled, so 40% times 3, 120%. So yeah, very, very good buff. I noticed that Diana's attack speed is a lot better. That's what I was kind of worried about when I saw just this change, but obviously they hadn't introduced the passive change yet. Played her on the PvE as well. Obviously very, very strong. So for a passive. Crescent Strike, obviously just seeing a little bit of a mana cost reduction, which is good because obviously she's no longer getting this restoration of mana from her passive. Her W saw some slight changes as well, so it's obviously not, you can't just spam it, so you don't get the cooldown back until rank 4. It's 15 to 9 seconds, so at max rank it'll be the lowest it possibly can be. The total shield duration is down by 20 at all ranks. The orb ratio is down by 0.15, or 0.05, sorry, a total of 0.15. But it does gain a shield ratio of bonus health on the shield as well. So if you build health and you build AP, you get more damage out of the shield. For the orbs that spin around. So now people are kind of speculating that maybe Diana should be building Rod of Ages, should be going Bruiser. I still think that the AP build is better suited for her. And by the AP build, I'm talking about Nash's and the Zonias. It gives you the most flexibility, it gives you the most dueling power, it gives you the most team fight potential. And it basically allows you to do pretty much anything. You don't really need to build tank at all. You want to be able to do some serious damage with your ult. The ult base damage is quite high, even on tank Diana, but it's the passive that's the strongest part, probably about her kit right now. And with her being able to dash around, you get attack speed. The Nash's Tooth 1-item power spike is nuts. You could basically solo out any mid laner with just Nash's Tooth. So if you get Rod of Ages, it's going to be delaying your ability to fight that much more. If you get the Nash's Tooth at, let's say, 12 minutes, 13 minutes, instead of the Rod of Ages, you don't need the health in order to deal damage to somebody. You're going to overkill them with a fully stacked row or beginning row anyway, so you might as well take the attack speed for more split pushing potential. You can get those early plates as well, and it gives you CDR, which is what you need in your kit to obviously bring the W back. I think you're going to be maxing W second, but I like the E max second as well. The damage on the E feels quite good. And the cooldown reduction allows you to basically do some pretty crazy things in the mid game team fights. So let's look at the E. So this was her old ultimate. So it went from 25 to 15 seconds. Obviously it scales down to 1 second less, and it starts 3 seconds less as well. Still gets the reset when you hit somebody with a Moonlight on them as well. And the cost goes from 40 to 60 mana in total. The damage is obviously a lot less because obviously not being an ultimate, and the ratio is less. So people are probably speculating that you should max your W second. I think that if you're going to go the AP build, your W is not what you want to max second. I think putting 3 points in defensive matchups I think is quite good, but I think E second is probably going to be better. I was looking at Arc Second's video. He seems to think the more tank Diana is probably going to be more prevalent. The Rod of Ages into Nash's Tooth into more tank items is going to be more prevalent. In which case you probably would want to max W second, which I would agree with. But I think E definitely for Electrocute Diana, which I seem to prefer that build more. And then her ultimate. So now it was the vacuum, the draw-in, 100 seconds to 80 seconds, which I think is actually very low and very generous. 100 mana obviously because it's just an ultimate. 40 to 60% slow at the different ranks, and basically if Diana pulls in one or more enemies, Moonlight crashes down onto her after 1 second, which you can Zonias as well. So if you dash in, pull people in Zonias, it will still do the Moonlight crash, dealing 200 to 400 plus 0.6 ability power and magic damage in the area around her, increased by 35, 60, 85 plus 0.15 ability power for each target beyond the first pull. So if you get a 3-man ultimate, it's going to basically just erase everyone. So overall, I think it's very good for Diana. She has the ability to dash in and out. You can do interesting trades like Q onto your opponent, pop your W, E dash in, auto attack them 3 times, E back to one of your ranged minions, and you can do pretty interesting trades like that. Which, if you're going to do stuff like that, then obviously E max second is probably the best for you. But yeah, I think it's quite good, and that's why I think Nash's Tooth is better, because you get the cooldown reduction 20% off of your base 15, gets you close to what it was before. It also reduces this down as well to make it like a rank 2, rank 3. So it's quite good. And obviously the passive I think is the strongest part of the kit with the attack speed and the dueling power, which is probably why people are arguing for a more tank-oriented Diana. I think that more AP-oriented Diana, because AP slashes onto that tower with a good bit of AP. Gnash's Tooth, Zonia's makes you very tricky to duel. It makes you very tricky to get chased down. It makes you, I mean, in a 1v2 scenario, you can easily kill both people, especially when ahead, so, which I've done on many occasions. So, but yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. I definitely think should be picked up in competitive for sure. Moving on to Garen. So Garen's damage is +1 spin per 25% attack speed versus +1 spin per 20% attack speed. So slight nerf there on his E. They also lowered the base damage. I'm not sure how much damage is going to be taken off. Like I said, check Freak's patch notes for this. He's the math guy, but it doesn't. It seems like a slight nerf. I still think Garen is going to be, it's decently strong. Is he like the be-all end-all of top laners? No, he's not. He's very easy to play around. So I don't think competitive viability is, good enough for him. I think they probably this probably may have slightly over nerfed him, but we'll have to see on that as well. Okay, and then now we're moving on to Karma. So what we're gonna do here is see what they changed about her. So E, Inspire, 70 to 170 and 80 to 200. So that's gonna be changing her shield, which is quite, can be quite scary because obviously tank Karma was a thing. It was something that has the potential to be, very good in top lane, and yes, could be quite good. But obviously, support Karma is obviously being more prevalent with the AP item, so that could be something that we could see a lot more often. It's a good buff, but we'll have to obviously monitor her. Kassadin, they nerfed his Q, so it's 11 to 9 seconds versus 9 seconds at all ranks, and they lowered the missing mana. I think somebody lost to it in silver or gold or something, and they decided to nerf Kassadin, even though Kassadin is not strong. Kassadin is very easy to beat, and very easy to keep down if you know how to play around him, but it's just a solo queue thing. I guess they're nerfing him. Doesn't make sense to me. Rammus, we spoke about Rammus earlier. He's got his taunt duration is actually from 12 to 10 seconds, so, and his health growth is increased, so a little bit more love for him. Again, you're not going to get 2 taunts inside of a gank with this scaling, so just some, I guess, some quality of life there. Rise base damage lowered by, it looks to be 15 at all ranks. Obviously, Rise is a bit overtuned at the moment, especially with Conqueror being prevalent as well. He can go Conqueror, he can go Phase Rush. He can basically pick and choose what he wants to go. Still think Rise is going to be picked. This isn't going to change him too much. Maybe his early dueling, you'll notice it, and CSing and stuff like that. But apart from that, not much going on there. Senna's recommended items have been updated. Okay. Her health growth is down lower, so she's going to be easier to kill. The percentage on minion kills is down by 4%, which is actually quite big. It's actually an 80% or thereabouts decrease on minions, so she's going to have less passive. Champion clones no longer drop Myth Trace. Okay, I presume that was a bug. And allied bar can no longer kill Myth Trace. This is cute. That's a bit hilarious. Senna's Q saw 10 damage reduction in all ranks and 0.1 on the bonus attack damage ratio. Okay, so lowering her poke damage. Her last embrace is just more flat numbers versus the 1.45 root duration in the beginning. And then her ult has increased ability power ratio. Not sure why they would do that, but okay, sure. Will I think this remove Senna from the game? No, it won't. Senna's still going to be quite strong. Her kit's still quite overloaded. Sivir, 2 AD, not really much else there. Would have expected a little bit more for Sivir, being very susceptible to the current meta AD carries in Ashe and Caitlyn, in Senna, in champions like that. She just struggles against those, so could be a little while before we see Sivir back in. So Yuumi, they changed the way her kit kind of works now. So passive restores mana once again. Q costs increase, damage decrease. Yuumi no longer teleports with her anchor. E now grants attack speed, no longer stocks charges, and costs more mana. Okay, so her passive now restores mana and also gives a shield. Okay, that's fine. Her mana cost obviously increased on her Q by 10. The ability power ratio is lowered, but the flat is increased. The missile duration is a lot shorter, so you have to be a bit more cautious of when using this because you'll be spending more mana. and you're probably going to be using it more for the utility rather than the damage. Also, they're kind of swaying away from the AP Yumi because the ratio is down by 0.25. Um, Early levels, this could be equal, but I'm not sure. Like again, anything math related, check out Freaks patch notes. Um, and then the missile duration is down by 1 second, which is actually quite big, which means you have 1 less second to actually hit them with it. You and me, Sonata has a 0.25 channel time, so that's something that's quite big. You're gonna have to pay attention to that in laning phase. If you immobilize Yumi, it puts it on a 5 second cooldown, which could be quite dangerous. However, she increases her allies' adaptive force and her adaptive force by an increased amount, 12 to 20%, which was previously 5 to 13% and 4 to 16%. So overall, just buffs overall, which is quite nice. She doesn't teleport with her anchor anymore, so obviously being able to cheese a teleport with just one person and her being safe from any CC or anything like that is quite nice. It's quite annoying actually that she could do that. Similar to how Zion Rakan could do it, but that was kind of built into their kit. Her Izumi's grants 25 to 45% attack speed to herself or her anchored target, so if she's on a target, it gives them attack speed. It no longer stocks charges, so it can only be used once. No longer increases Yumi's healing based on target's missing health. Okay, so it's a flat heal. So the heal is now, ability power ratio is up by 0.2. And the base heal is up by a crazy amount, so you get your last rank at rank 1. So it's more of a steroid than anything to be used. And the cooldown is 12 to 8 seconds, so it's literally, this is, and then the mana cost is from 100 to 160, so it's quite big mana cost increase there. So you're not going to be spamming this crazily in lane. 115% no longer decays over time, and it's a 3 second duration. I assume that's also for the attack speed and the movement speed as well, which was down by 10% but doesn't decay. So basically what I can see from this is that Yumi is going to be more like a offensive oriented version of what Lulu used to be when it was the Juggernaut compositions. That's what I can see from here, because obviously with her ult she's a bit more offensive than Lulu's ult, but again you can stick them on Kog'Maw and you can just send them forward and let them go. Can be quite scary actually. I'm curious to see how this kind of plays out in competitive. Lux, they changed their visual updates, pretty cool looking now. They're actually quite easy to see. Conqueror, here we go. I've been complaining about Conqueror a lot. Let's see what they did. So duration, 8 seconds to 6 seconds overall. That's a hit to both ranged and melee champions. And then ranged now only get 8% of the healing versus the 15%, which is good, which makes that people like Cassiopeia, like Ryze, don't get crazy amounts of healing. And the duration overall I thought was just too high anyway regardless. I still think that the amount of healing that it gives is still quite high for just even melee champions personally. I would like to see this at potentially 12% and 6%, and then potentially look at the stacks. I think Conqueror iconically should only be for melee champions in general, and I think of AD bruisers personally when it comes to that, but we'll see. Prototype Omnistone. Basically with this, from what I'm gathering, I read this earlier, basically if you're closer to champions when you're less likely to be in combat, you can get Predator. If you're close to the champions with lower health, you get Dark Harvest. If you're closer to champions, near low health champions, and building attack speed or damage, you get Hail of Blades. Enemies with high health, it's Conqueror. If you're low health and below level 9, it's Fleet Footwork. More likely to get Glacial Augment if you have a Glacial Augment item off cooldown, so that's quite nice. Summon area if you have healing or shielding stuff. So basically you can kind of force it a little bit. The probabilities are increased but not necessarily guaranteed, so quite nice there. These were documented in the previous patch notes, so they buffed Ezreal, they changed Omnistone, they nerfed Sanguine Blade, the Drakes, the Drake Kill. I think this was actually quite a bad change personally. I think the Dragons should still give gold. Having 25 gold is it hurts the jungler quite significantly actually. 75 gold, that's 150 gold. That's 2 pink wards in the early game for the first 2 dragons if you get them both. So yeah, it's quite bad personally. They also, the Rift Herald was the base damage was increased and the damage per level was decreased. The Turret Plate Gold they nerfed and they give it bonus of resistances. and then the adjustment of the maps, they all changed. That was in a follow-up change that they did briefly after 9.23. Obviously, Return of the Poro King, ARAM balance changes, which we don't really care about too much, duplicate things, bug fixes, and then we're going to look at the skins here. So, Dawnbringer Karma. It's a pretty good looking skin. It reminds me of like some type of like airbender or waterbender, in a sense, from the Avatar. So, that's quite interesting there. Dawnbringer Nidalee. Yeah, it's a pretty cool skin, but you could easily tell me that was Karma without a spear, so interesting there. Dawnbringer Soraka is quite cool, kind of reminds me kind of like a Final Fantasy kind of aspect to it, with the feathers and the wings here, so quite neat there. Nightbringer Soraka, so the fiery version of Soraka. Nightbringer Lee Sin, basically you can show everyone how skillful you are on Lee Sin with his dark side, and then you can show that you're pay to win with the Prestige Edition. Onto the other Nightbringer skins. Nightbringer Vlad, that looks quite cool. He kind of reminds me a little bit of the Emperor from Final Fantasy XIV, except he's Hemamancer instead. But yeah, quite cool there. Nightbringer Aphelios. This kind of reminds me of the other Yasuo skin. I can't remember if it was a Nightbringer one or not, but looks it's quite cool. Kind of got the yin and the yang kind of aspect going on there. Sugar Rush Zillion. Obviously, he's consuming all of the poor gingerbread men. From the looks of it, quite cool there. Got some ice cream cone shoulder pads. Looks like he's got some like whipped cream or caramel hair here. Quite cool. Sugar Rush Braum. We got all three skins here. So we got the Sugar Rush Zillion, Braum, and I believe this is Katarina. All of them stealing all the treats. I think it's a quite a cool skin line personally. Oh, it's Evelyn. Sorry. It's Evelyn, yeah. And then the Ziggs obviously with the strawberries and whipped cream. He probably throws cupcakes or something by the looks of it. And then obviously the Evelyn 1 as well. And then lastly we have Hextech Swain, which I'm trying to think what this reminds me of. Probably just Swain, honestly. But yeah, pretty cool skin. It's going to be acquired by Gemstones, considering the Hextech skin. And then we have obviously all the chromas there as well. So, that's going to do it for the patch 9.24 patch notes. Make sure to check out Freak's and LS's patch notes as well. Freak for the more mathematical side, LS for the more competitive League of Legends side of things. I've been Pilot Flame, and we'll see you in the next patch notes. Take care.